Hello, everybody, and welcome to another special interview here on Quantum Planet World, or QPW as we like to call it. Today, we're going to be exploring one of the newer areas within the QPW portfolio that we haven't really expanded into yet, which is communicating with animals. Now, as many of you will know, over at Quantum Plant Healing, our sister site, myself and my partner Bella are always talking to the plants, and we've been running many immersions. But today, it's my great honor to be talking to a wonderful lady that I connected with many years ago now, actually, through some personal healing spaces. And today I'm going to be talking to Eleni Gkikakis, who founded the Interspecies Peace, currently lives in Greece, but I think is originally from South Africa, if I remember correctly. Is that, no? Did you, you've just been to South Africa, Eleni,
I've
right?
been to South Africa a few times, yes.
Right, maybe that's where I'm picking up some of the accents from. But we're going to be talking today about Eleni's work, which is basically interspecies communications and how the interspecies peace movement set up. And I think this is going to be super interesting for many of our tribe, particularly those who've been working with their Stellar Nations codes and activating the animals within. So Eleni, welcome to Quantum Planet World and welcome back. It's been a long time since we had any kind of connections with each other sort of in our spiritual work. But how are you doing? How are you finding 2024 so far, and how have you been experiencing the time since we last communicated a few years ago?
It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. So wonderful to be part of this expanding community. Thank you. Thank you all. Well, 2024 came in with a bang, really. I mean,
right. It's still going bang, I think.
You think you're going to have a quiet start to the year to set the pace as you wish it would be. And it's like, nope, I got other plans for you, ladies. It's been, but it's good. I mean, as long as we remain grounded and as long as we stay connected with our animal and nature allies, we can see that we're not alone in this turmoil of craziness that's going on around us. So it's interesting. It started very dynamically, and gosh, I know this is going to be a very critical year. Very, very, very critical. We're at a pivotal point. So there's lots of things we can do and co-create with nature and animals and each other.
Exactly. And each other, right? So we're going to get into the whole co-creation piece in a minute, but I completely concur with you. Grounding, centering, and in many ways, I think we kind of do similar work, but yours is with animals and mine's more with plants, but somehow we cross over. I know that you also talk with the nature spirits and the elementals, as do I, and sometimes animals come and speak to me. I had quite a lot of that, actually, in 2020. During the lockdown period, I was often spending time out in nature, sometimes in the dark, looking at the stars, and often I'd suddenly be surrounded by animals. Sheep would come and talk to me, cows would come and talk to me, foxes, I even had badgers, birds would appear in my meditations in the forest. And I thought, well, that's very interesting. I wonder if there's some sort of elevation in the animal consciousness at this time, maybe an elevation in my own consciousness. But also, I think it was partly because the lockdown allowed the animals to come back into our world more. So there was more of them around. I also perceived many newborn animals, particularly rabbits during that time, that suddenly didn't have any sense of fear around humans, particularly me. And so I had, I guess, my first little taste of animal communications in that regard. But this is your world. So where would you like to start, Eleni, to share with our audience what it is that you do, how you got into it, and how you see it moving forwards in this great expansion at this time?
Great. Well, ever since I was a child, as far as I can remember, and my parents saying that my first words were I was speaking to a flower. And in our garden in the island of Crete, where I was born. And I don't remember that because I was too young, but I do have vivid memories of all my childhood, being absolutely best friends with animals, talking to them, listening to them, and receiving information, receiving responses, receiving guidance. And the other thing that I also had as a child was that I would, especially in dream time, I would receive messages from spirit world, especially from my grandfathers who both passed when I was a very, very young child. And I wasn't finding it strange. I wasn't finding it weird at all. I wasn't scared at all. I've always had also a very strong and beautiful connection with death through these kinds of communications. It's like, oh, it's just another door, you just leave your body here and just go to another place, and you can still be and you can still interact with those that you love. So that was very comforting to me. And I was also feeling it with my animals that were passing throughout the years, especially those of my childhood and those who recently as well. So this is something that I've had. I don't want to call it a gift because it's not a gift, or actually it is a gift, and it is a gift that has been given to everyone. There's no such thing as I'm special or you're special, or everyone can do it. And to answer to what you were talking about earlier, I think the difference is that what we started to do as we start connecting with nature is that animals come and talk to us because they realize that we start listening.
Right.
That's the difference, because many people mistake animal communication, intuitive animal communication, as something that, I'm going to talk with my animal, to not pee on the carpet, or my cat to not scratch the furniture. Well, first of all, intuitive interspecies communication is not a way to command your animal to not have free will or not have fun with what they want to have fun with.
I think we were talking about this with our cat at the beginning, right? We've had to ban some
yes,
inside on our new sofa because of the claws, but
exactly.
we have some boundaries, but yes.
I know, but they're also sovereign beings, and
Right.
no, but I like this. No, it's also mine. Am I part of this family, or am I not part of this family? So, you start having a conversation, and especially with the animals in the wild, when they realize that, because those are the ones that I feel have a lot more close connection to their astral wisdom. Our animals at home are definitely affected by our behavior, by our schedule. I mean, they are animals in captivity. It can be 7 stars captivity, but still they're captive animals. Their eating patterns and their bathroom patterns, they all depend on our schedule and our
like
own
humans,
whim.
right?
Yes,
We're living in
absolutely.
7-star captivity, but
we are captive, but the wild ones have been waiting and looking forward for so long to find humans that are listening. So I think that what happened with COVID, and in your case as well, is that finally someone who listens. So let's go talk to that guy. So that is why when we start setting our intention that we want to intuitively communicate, one of the things that I say first in my in my workshops is like, first we have to learn how to listen, and then open a discussion, a negotiation, and how to move forward. But what happened in my life is that I did, of course, as I was growing up as a teenager, and after my parents had been called to school for my vivid imagination one too many times, I did decide that it's time for me to keep it a secret. And of course, that keeping it a secret, or pushing it under the heart's rug, so to speak, it became a habit, and it took the best of me. So at the age of 18, I went to the States. I studied communications, by the way, but it was marketing and advertising, but still it was communications.
Slightly different, but yeah.
Yeah. I did work in that world for a good decade, and it did take, for me personally, we're not going to get into the details today. It did take a huge trauma, a personal trauma, for this intuition, which I was always kind of hearing that I have. I was reminded of it, but I was like, but I have to use my mind. I'm working now. I'm an adult now. But it took something to just slap me out of that slumber and say, hey, wake up to the real world and listen to.
It's often the way though, right? And it requires some kind of life situation. And I'm sure many of our audience listening will be able to resonate with what you said. As children, we have this capacity to dream, to see the invisible world. And then we're told that it's not real and that we should shut it down. And at some point, similar to you, I think probably around 15, my heart chakra shut down because my inner world was like yours, I think, was vast, but often filled with spirits and even not nice spirits and blah, blah, blah. And, people don't want to listen to that in the Western world. And so we do sort of shut down. We enter corporate world. And then probably sometime in our 30s, we end up going to Egypt or drinking some strange jungle medicine and something happens, or we get a really bad trauma that's like a punch in the face. It's like, wake up. And I think that perhaps humanity is getting the collective punch in the face right now to wake up. So I feel that perhaps some of us have a bit of a head start maybe on that pathway of remembrance.
Well, it was time that this is going to happen. I mean, there's no running away from it. It's a one-way street once you start experiencing it. I mean, in my case, after that traumatic episode that I had, a few short months after that, my unicorn horse appeared in this life. And she's the one who actually did not allow me by any means to go back into that slumber. So that was about more than 20 years ago. And what started happening is that I was always a child of nature, and I always had animals growing up, but I never had horses. It was too expensive. It was just too much of a dream for a girl to have a horse at the time. My dad was a military, so we're moving a lot. And so, but I was an adult, and we decided to give it a try. Not in a sense that we're going to give up. It's not just to give it a try. It's like, we're going to commit. We're going to get this horse, which was a semi-rescue type of a situation. But anyway, she got sick, and I could feel things about her, but I was denying my own feelings, and I was listening to the experts, the veterinarians, or a trainer, or a groom, or I wouldn't go back into my heart as openly as I was when I was a child. So what she did is that she used my dream time to make sure that I'm not going to doubt what I get. So I would have this very vivid and also extremely stressful dreams about her being very sick, being on the stables ground and kicking and struggling because she's colicking, and it's 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm waking my husband up with this maternal thing. And I'm not a mother of a two-legged, by the way, but I was waking up as I said, Lily's not well, we have to go check. So we would drive about an hour away, and to actually see her on the ground, kicking and struggling with pain. So that it took her journey as well, to experience some pain and some health issues, to reinforce and actually bring back very steadily and very confidently that this is who I am. This isn't what I do. This is who I am. I can hear her voice. I can hear her pain. I can feel her. So it took a little while longer for me to realize that I wasn't having this ability coming back because of my love for her, because I thought, okay, so I can intuitively communicate with Lily. And then other animals came in saying, hey, you can communicate with me as well, and with me as well, and the plant and the flower. So they just all came back. It became a tsunami because it starts as one, and then you have this confidence built. And that is what we're trying to do in the workshops as animal communicators. We want to bring this people's confidence back, that you can listen and you can hear their messages, and have faith that you do. And once you start building onto that confidence and faith, then the chatter can be, it can be annoying, but then you say, okay, I don't want to talk right now. But when you open the conversation, when you say, I'm here and I'm listening, then they have a lot of wisdom to share.
Amazing.
Of course, with our own animals, our own, I'm using that word in quotes as, we have our own animals, but the animals that we guard in this life, the animals whose lives we steward, we do have issues that we work through. It can be behavior, it can be a bad habit of someone, a cat scratching the couch, the furniture, a dog peeing on the carpet one too many times. So we can have conversations about things, these types of things. Where is it coming from? Is it a bad habit? Is it because, when I'm not paying enough attention to you? So you start having a conversation and see what it is that they need and what it is that they want. And also we start understanding better what it is that they're trying to tell us with their behavior many times. In my experience, communicating with animals is that, especially when it comes to behavioral health issues around animals, it is usually something that they mirror or something that they want to point in the humans' lives.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, I bet you have.
Yeah.
I bet you have. It's not, many people have, they do see that their animal is unwell when they are unwell, and vice versa a few times, so it is an entangled energy. You live in the same space, you probably eat in the same space, you sleep in the same space. So it is impossible not to have each other's etheric body affect the physical body as well. It just cannot be. It's all energy. How can you avoid that? So they're the animals that just mirror a behavior, or they mirror a health issue. They're those who do this because they want to point something significant for their humans. They're those who are just there to assist in the process, or there are those who will make a huge shift in their own lives and their own human lives as well through their own struggle. So, but what is it? And that is when we intuitively communicate with them and say, okay, what are you trying to say? What is happening? Tell me how you feel. Explain what's happening. And they have a lot of insights. They have incredible insights for those who are willing to listen, you know?
Yeah, but it reminds me of actually, Eleni, and again, I'm probably going to draw quite a few comparisons with your work to my own with plants, but it reminds me a bit of like the way that the plants that our body and energy need often appear in the garden. And if we're really reading the terrain around us, we understand that and there is scientific evidence now that supports this, that our gut flora talks to the microbiomes in the soil at the quantum level and say, "Whoa, David's a little bit icky right now. He needs to clean out his liver. Let's get the dandelions on the go." Or he needs some realignment, so mugwort will suddenly come through. And I think it's often the same thing. And, you know, I'd like to ask you a question about the different types of animals, because I'm thinking that some animals, like dogs maybe, who are incredibly loyal, they're carrying some sort of the Christ consciousness energy, which was of the big heart, and they're here to give us love. And, you know, of course, animals also need love. I think most sentient beings, really, particularly mammals, need that sort of interaction of love. But humans often, I feel dogs come to give them something that's missing in their life. Would that be correct? Or do you have any patterns that you can say about certain animals like that?
Well, I can say definitely that the way I have experienced it, and with the conversations that I have with other animal communicators, dogs are, you know, if we're going to make the distinction, cats and dogs, because this is the most common animals that we guard in our homes.
Right.
Dogs are here to show us love.
Yeah.
Unconditional, pure love, absolute pure love. And even I had this conversation with one of my dogs that passed away. I said, why do you humans need to put the word unconditional in front of love? It's love. There's no such thing as conditional love. So there should be no such thing as unconditional love. If love is love, you don't need to define it as unconditional. So it was a wonderful teaching in the sense that we are love, period. You don't need to define what it is, loyalty, you know, faithfulness, company, companionship. And many people have also said that dogs have, and I agree, but I agree about this for many animals, that but mostly dogs have the ability to actually absorb the human's health problem, whether it is a psychological or mental or physical problem. And that is why many choose, or, you know, they're coming forward to become service dogs, you know, those who are supporting humans. Cats on the other side is just not on the other side, but cats are
very
more
different. I know that.
They're quite different. They're quite different. They do know love, you know, unconditional, you know, let's use that term, because as humans, we're still trying to figure out and make the distinction. They do know love, but they're also a lot more serious about their job as healers.
Yes.
And that is why I have found that in many different traditions, I mean, in Greece, we say that the cats have 7 lives. In other countries, they say they have 9 lives. That is why many times they retreat, or they may run off, or they go away, or they get very, very sick, or, you know, they just go hide in weird places, is because they need to replenish. It's not because they're independent, or because, you know, they don't want to mess with us right now, or they don't want us messing with them. It's because they've done something for us, maybe, or for their space, or for themselves. You know, they are sovereign beings. They could be here just because they want to, and they need to complete their own sacred contract, but they will find the space to replenish 1 life, 2 lives, 3 lives, 4 lives. So cats have the ability to do that a lot more than dogs. Dogs will just take it in, and just not in a self-sacrificial kind of way. They're not playing the martyrs here. Let's not confuse that. But it is because they want to show that I want to help you, and I will do anything to do that. Cats, I have a feeling that they have this higher vibrational frequency, that they say, you know, I can help you without damaging myself too much, and I can do this a number of times. And I think that they're just doing it on a more divine kind of level.
Let me ask you a question about this, Eleni, actually, because I do generally connect more to cats than dogs, and as a geomancer who works with earth energies, and as my teacher Patrick Manaway told me, he said whenever I go to a house, I always look to see where the cats are sitting, because that's nearly where the concentration of the weird, funky energy is. And there's a great meme, maybe you've seen it, of somebody who paints like this spiral picture and puts it on the floor, and all the dogs like, oh my god, like what's that? And they walk around it, and the cat goes and sits right on it. So I think that's kind of interesting. And cats to me are, I think, much more interdimensional, much more regularly than dogs are. Dogs seem very present in this realm. Of course, they have many senses, particularly with smell and many other things. But cats seem to inhabit a whole different multidimensional space quite easily compared to many animals. I mean, have you discovered that yourself? Would you have a comment about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had the experience of communicating a few times, not many, with domestic cats that had run off, that had run away, and they had gone missing for a long time. And I was feeling, and I didn't really know what to make of this, but other communicators have felt the same thing, that they shapeshift as well.
I'd say so, yeah.
I mean, it's just, they have, like you say, they go between dimensions in that effort for themselves to complete their mission, whether it is for their humans or for themselves. They will go where it's needed to go, whether it is a changing dimension or changing the form for a short amount of time before actually coming back replenished and rejuvenated to take on to the next mission and the next task. And yeah, I have experienced with a few cats, especially those that have run, what we say, they have run off. They have chosen to retreat, to go away. And many choose to not come back as well, as opposed to dogs. It's not a matter of loyalty necessarily. It's a different kind of mission. It is a different kind of thing that whatever comes to us is what we need. I mean, I'm always surrounded by, if I had a choice, I would have cats, but my dogs do not allow cats. So
I've seen that happen. I lived on a ranch when I first came to Mexico that was up in the state of Hidalgo around this time of year, actually, a couple of years ago. And they had a cat. And then it just disappeared, literally disappeared. And I mean, they thought the cat was weird. I got on really well with the cat. They didn't like it so much, the people I was staying with. And it just disappeared. And they were completely non-bothered by it. It's like, but the cat was here yesterday. And then it disappeared for a week, never to be seen again. They were like, well, we think it got shot by the guy next door. I'm like, I don't know, man. Shooting a cat is not that easy, to be honest. Not that I've tried. I just want to be clear about that. But what I also find interesting is the whole idea of the witch is familiar. And for sure, I'm undergoing some sort of process with our cat here, who occasionally appears in these videos. And it was very clear that there was some agreement that had already been decided upon, that we were going to have some sort of relationship like this, which I actually steadfastly refused for the first 8 months. And I've only now in the last couple of months decided that maybe I'm open to this. And it made me think, when you're saying about the shapeshifters, it's like, well, what is the idea of a witch is familiar? It's where basically the consciousness of the human can travel with the consciousness of the cat, even though the cat is outside somewhere. Now, many people would say, oh, this is just some sort of Harry Potter, Sabrina, woo-woo stuff. And I'm like, no, I think it's actually possible based on some of my own limited experiences with, first of all, this cat here, but also one that I had a similar experience with in Wales before I left there some years ago that came. And this cat would often follow me into the woods, and it would walk miles. I've never seen a cat walk for 2 or 3 miles with a human before. But this cat would walk, and it would run ahead of me, and it would do all of its cat stuff. And it was about this big, but it had the idea that it was a lion or something and that it was protecting me. So I found cats to be interesting, and as I've got older, my communications with them have changed somehow, or maybe I've become more open. It's like we often say with the angelic realm of the plants, you have to invite them into the conversation with you, because these are respectful beings who actually observe boundaries. Maybe not my cat always so much as I would like, but generally at the energetic level, they seem to respect boundaries. And for sure, anyone who's ever sat in some sort of medicine ceremony with cats and dogs will see that they naturally come and sit. And I've seen many cats and dogs in ceremonies that have done healing on humans. So I think it's very interesting, the potential there.
I think that this is not new. I'm sure this is not new. Domesticated animals have been allies to humans' processes for millennia. They've been there. Indigenous knowledge systems, they have been working with of course, all of nature, definitely with plants, of course, but also they would call in spirit of animals, various spirits of animals to assist with any kind of process. I believe that we were chosen by some animals to come and live with us because they have some gifts that they want to share with us. Or I've also experienced situations where it is a symbiotic relationship. I'm going to choose this family to go and live with because I want to give them this and this type of healing or assistance in their lives, but they also have this and this thing that I need. It's not a one-way street. I'm always trying to stress this about animal communication, especially animal communication. It's not a one-way street. It's not me talking to your animal and telling them what to do or not to do and how to behave and what to eat and not eat. It is an open conversation between equal beings, and I'm just in the middle, doing the translator if necessary, and just conveying messages about needs and how can we make each other's life happier, easier, better. How can each one assist the other person, because animals are persons, right? How can each one assist the other person to evolve as well? What if they are on a sacred mission? How can we also assist them to evolve and, fulfill their obligations in this incarnation? Why not? So for me, it's always about co-creation. For me, it's always about understanding and co-creating, whether it is co-creating a peaceful environment inside the house, a peaceful environment among the animals inside the house, or a more peaceful planet,
That's really
Let's
beautiful.
talk with nature. Let's talk with the animals. I mean, the animals have a very good idea of where humanity stands at this in these days. And we all have a very good idea of where the planet is going. So they're waiting for people to listen to them, to what they have to share, to their insights, to their wisdom, because they're also having ample knowledge, wisdom, and ability to touch the information that was there before. We don't so much, because that is also intuitive communication. I have found that animals are a lot more connected with their previous incarnations or with spirit life a lot more than we do. I mean, we can try and we can do it consciously, and we can have some people help us do that, of course. But some animals, not all of them, but some animals have that more easily available to them as information. So
but that's like humans, right? I mean, humans are the same. Some can communicate more easily, and some
yes,
can't communicate at all. And
absolutely, yes. And it is quite a shame to know that we have this access to this vast information and knowledge and guidance, and we don't ask them. And it is one of the things that I've given myself deeply the commitment as Interspecies Peace as an organization. What I really want to focus on, and what I've been doing in the recent years, is that I want this work to be of service to wildlife mostly, whether it is plants and, also pieces of land, sacred natural sites, and of course, animals of conservation, animals in rehabilitation, and those who are ready to be rewilded, and just communicate with them and get them to understand what it is that these violent acts of humans are about, because it is a violent act to capture an animal that is injured and take it to a cage and put it into a clinic. Okay, let's explain to the animal what we're trying to do. Not that it's not going to follow its instincts to run off most times, but once it's being reassured that we're doing it for their welfare and their safety, they might even cooperate. And I've seen this happen. We've seen this happen so many times. And then they can offer so much back of their own wisdom, of their own guidance about what to do with them. Are you ready to be reintroduced? Do you need something else? Is there something more I can do for you and your body? I'm intending on taking you back to this spot of the land. And the animal say, but my family's on the other spot. And then you have to explain to the animal, well, yeah, your family is not there anymore because, I don't know, somebody decided to shoot everyone from a helicopter.
oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm more committed in doing work, which I don't know if someone else has coined it, but I'm also calling, because it's a conservation and it's also part of sacred activism. So I'm calling it a sacred conservation, is like I'm offering my gifts to organizations and institutions that are using, are doing projects of conservation. And I offer my ability to communicate with the animals that they want to capture or rehabilitate or rewild, or if they can't be rewilded and they need to spend the rest of their lives into a sanctuary, to just explain to them and just handhold them spiritually, emotionally, mentally even, just handhold them through this process. It makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference to their lives. It makes a huge difference to their healing, and it makes a huge difference to the people who work with them, because things can be easier, or they can also have a very good understanding of what the animal needs, or if the animal is meant to leave this body sooner than what humans want. So it is about co-creating, and it is about co-creating a new paradigm. And we're doing this. I mean, it's happening. It is happening. It's inevitable. The animals are doing it. Like you said, they're approaching you because they want to talk to you. They have so much to share. They have so much to offer. Are we listening?
So I love everything you said. It's really beautiful, and I completely on the same page. And I think it's how I sort of view nature in general. I talk to nature spirits, and when trees get chopped down, I have to go and speak to the spirit of the tree. I have to speak to the other spirits that were living in the tree. This has happened to me quite a bit when I lived in Wales. And you feel the distress of the nature spirits, particularly when a big old tree is chopped down with no conversation beforehand, no explanation. You know, be a bit like if you came home and somebody bulldozed your house and you were just expected to get on with life, and you know, your house has been removed and nobody's explained why and anything, right? And you know, if we were to do that to other humans, we'd go, well, that's just really out of order. And yet we feel like it's okay to do it to animals or to trees or things that actually keep our environment healthy and working as a biosphere for us. Because, you know, one of the interesting things I was watching yesterday was a guy called Stefan Burns who looks at the sunspots and the activity of solar flares, and he was also looking at the resonance of the planet and many things that were going on. And to paraphrase essentially where he came to, and I think which is a big part of the journey we're all on, is to realize that humans are not separate from nature. Now, to me and you, this is obvious, and probably to everyone watching this video, but apparently for most humans, that's not obvious. Somehow nature is something that's outside, perhaps, and we live inside, or it's something that we can go and cut down, dig up, take from without permission, or any of these things. And yet what the information was showing yesterday on this video I was watching basically was that we're in a symbiotic relationship with the earth. It reacts to how we're reacting, and we react to how it's reacting. And the two things cannot be separated. And yet somehow that hasn't dawned on humans in general, that this is a really important part of our existence here on Earth, is to come to this conclusion, which of course you understand deeply as to why, and anyone else who has a connection to nature. But I think that this is a big part of the journey we're on. And I really see that what you're doing, Eleni, is so important with the animals and showing that, you know, whether it's plants, animals, trees, amphibians, fish, whatever, we're all part of the same biosphere, and that we should all be in a place of co-respect, co-love and co-creation, because otherwise things are going to get a little bit messy. And what you said about the animals is so true, is that they're also sovereign beings. We have no right to capture them, to shoot them, to tell them what to do. You know, they have the right to roam freely in this world the same as we do. So with that in mind, I'd like to move the conversation on a little bit now to the work that you're doing with the sacred conservation in the form of a sacred conversation, if I can get my words out. And to tell us a little bit, first of all, about some of your work that really intrigues me, which is with the White Lion Academy. And I know that the cats in general, whether they're small domestic cats or big cats, are something that a lot of our community are interested in, but also to tell us then how that links to the work you're doing with your own organization, the Interspecies piece. So I'll leave it up to you to direct this part of the conversation.
Well, when I first went to South Africa, one of the legs of my journey was to go to the Global Wildland Protection Trust, where I also did an animal communication workshop there with, I mean, I participated in the work of Winter Worsthorn, one of my teachers and a dear friend, I dare say, in the Global Wildland Protection Trust. There I met, and I have been good friends with Linda Tucker ever since, who is the keeper of the white lions. So the white lions are also called star lions because they are beings that came from the stars, and their original place on Earth is also called Timbavati. Timba is lion and Vati is star. So it's all, the place where they naturally occur on the planet is called Timbavati, and that is place where the lions from the star came. So they are incredible beings. I mean, it is impossible to be in their presence and not just feel the cosmic energies and the greater plan just making perfect sense. It's just not possible. It's just not possible to be in their presence and not know that I need to find my purpose. I need to find my place on this planet. And it's not me, mine as a human. It is me as a human species among other species as part of nature. I am nature. We're all interconnected. And how do we serve each other? So the Academy, which you referred to, is a program of the Global Wildland Protection Trust. And it is the Wild Lion Leadership Academy, which is also led by Linda Tucker and other wonderful facilitators, evolutionary astrologist Maurice Fernandez, interspecies communicator Winter Warthorn, and there's so many others. I mean, on their website, there's a lot of information. And what they're teaching is actually the 13 laws of lion-hearted leadership, which is actually the natural laws, the laws that nature is not only surviving, but is also caring, offering, and servicing the entire of creation. Having the lion as the apex predator is actually bringing balance to the whole ecosystem, which is something that we have experienced when the wolves were reintroduced to the Yellowstone National Park. So the same thing happened with the wild lions. When Linda Tucker started reintroducing the wild lions to their native lands, and the heartlands, as they're called, the whole ecosystem got to find balance again among all species. And it's not just about species, it's also about the land. And that is why it is a project that it's also saying it's about lions, land, and people. The land also managed to recuperate from monocultivating culture, monocultures, or from other parks that were there and using animals as game hunt, or
I was going to go in a slightly different direction. I know from one of my friends who's a permaculture farmer.
Okay, no, let's go to your direction.
She was getting lion poop from the local zoo and using it as fertilizer on her land, which is incredibly potent stuff. So yes. I think that's a lot more productive than shooting them, perhaps.
Yes, definitely. So what has happened is that it is these types of projects, and this is the type of projects that Interspecies Peace likes to get involved with as well, because it's a holistic approach. It's not just about the animal. It's about when the animals are kept well and when the animals are living naturally in their own wild environment, the land is also thriving. The people around the land, because they live off the land, are also thriving. I've also worked with the Jane Goodall Institute and Jane Goodall herself, and she's always said that the number one problem for the environment and the crisis that we have on conservation is poverty. You cannot ask the poor man not to chop down trees, to make coal, to cook his food, or to set up traps to capture his or her food for their family. And they're not going to think twice that it might capture an endangered species or that it might capture a lion instead of an antelope, because for them, it's just about survival. So working with projects around the world, just like the Global Wildland Protection Trust, which for me is just really living by the principle of protecting animals, land, and people all the same, we're not going to find the solutions in a different way. It's not just one way. I'm not doing it just for the animals. I'm doing it because I know it is going to affect in a positive way everyone around the animals and the land and the rest of the people. It's about, holding close to our natural resources because they're ours, all of ours. It's not just human resources. We're also resources for the animals.
It's really beautiful what you're saying, and you know, sometimes we have this thing about apex predators, right? And there's a bit of a joke in Britain that the apex predator we have is the badger. That's all that we've got left because all of the other animals were removed. And I laughed at the time when I heard that, and I'm like, well, actually, it's probably true. The badger is the apex predator because what's bigger and wild in Britain than a badger that's that would go out and prey on other animals? And I couldn't think of anything. But all joking aside, I think it's kind of interesting that there's the 13 laws of the lion-hearted leadership, because we were talking before we hit the record about the Stellar Nations pathway, of which one of the major archetypes is the winged lion nation. And what is the winged lion nation about in terms of our own decoding? It's about leadership. The lions are about leadership. So I think that that's super interesting. But coming back to the apex predator, it's like humans have removed the apex predators in many situations out of fear, right? And it's one of the major stumbling blocks to introducing the wolves in places like Scotland, for example, or Switzerland, because people are worried they're going to come and eat their sheep, which of course doesn't take into account that people are using the natural environments of the wolves for sheep farming, which is not really in accordance with the biosphere. I remember a really beautiful, or not beautiful, but really interesting talk from George Monbiot, the famous Guardian ecologist. And he was talking about the problem in Britain with the flooding of the rivers at that time. And he said the problem is not that the rivers have silted up as the government is trying to tell us. The problem is that all of the farmers have been encouraged by EU subsidies to chop down all of the trees that were holding the topsoil on the hills above the river. So when it rained really heavily, there was no root structure, and so the soil was all washing down. So we can see that the human interaction in the sacred landscape is profound and often quite detrimental, particularly, well, I can't say particularly, I think it's pretty global, to be honest.
Yes.
But certainly I've seen it in Britain over the course of my lifetime. They estimate that we've lost 30 to 40% of the wildlife diversity in Britain, right? Which is supposedly one of the countries that's better at these things. Never mind the problem, like 70% of our rivers and streams are polluted. In Britain, no longer can you go and fish for wild salmon in a stream or wild trout. Why? Because they're not there anymore. My dad, as a kid, he was able to go fishing in a stream and catch wild salmon and eat it for dinner, right? Now, I'm not saying that we have to go and do these things so that we can eat animals. That's not the point I'm making, but it shows me that the biodiversity of our planet, certainly in certain locations, has reduced because of this sort of human-centric thinking that sees animals and nature as a threat that we need to either keep out or get rid of somehow, right? So this approach, which is almost like a rewilding of ourselves, is coming back to the place that we should understand that we need to be in a holistic relationship with everything around us, right?
Well, it's greed. It's greed and it's entitlement, and it's something that has been programmed very well into humanity.
Very well.
That entitlement, that it is mine and I can do with it whatever it is that I want. It's not. You're here to steward it. You're here to take care of it, because what about your children or your grandchildren or your neighbor? Forget the children. I mean, people say, well, people have asked me, why do you care? You don't have children. I'm like, do I only have to care if I have children? I mean, we've seen where the world is going, and we're 8 billion of us because so many people had so many children. I don't see them caring anymore. That's not an excuse.
No,
caring is caring because it comes from a genuine place of feeling love about where you live and your surroundings. I think Charles Eisenstein has actually said this very well, saying, we can hear and read the statistics and we can feel the fear of what's coming and the doomsday about what's happening to the planet. And you can have people do better out of fear of losing their homes to a flood or to a fire, to whatever, because nature will respond to our acts of greed and entitlement. But what if we just start teaching people, and this is where intuitive interspecies communication comes in. What if we start teaching people to be better, treat better, care more, and love more, because simply we love. It's not because I'm afraid to lose this planet that I'm going to protect it. It's because I love this planet that I'm going to protect her. What if we start cultivating that opposite feeling of fear, which is love? Yeah, you can do it. It will serve the same if you do it out of fear, but fear doesn't mean respect. Fear doesn't mean love. Fear doesn't mean reverence of the natural world. Fear means, okay, I better do better because, I'm going to get punished if I don't. this isn't the way.
They're like polar opposites almost, Eleni, right? I'm doing one because
Exactly.
I'm afraid, and I'm doing one because I
Exactly
love.
the
It couldn't be
opposite.
more different, really.
And it is one of the major things that we say when we start talking about how to intuitively communicate with a being. You need to feel love in your heart, because it is the only sentiment that will push fear away.
It's true.
So
Really
it
true.
is the exact opposite vibration, frequency. So start feeling love and say, well, how can I feel love about an insect? Well, you know, by acknowledging its sovereign right to be here, by acknowledging that it is also their planet, that they're also having the right to water and food, and see how you can all live together, and explain perhaps to the insect that, you know, I'm feeling so uncomfortable. I want to love you so much, but I'm feeling so uncomfortable with you in the house. Can you please move out? And you will be surprised how many times they do.
I've had this happen. I mean, particularly with it works really well with wasps.
Yes,
Wasps are
yes,
super responsive. In fact, most hive mind insects are responsive. But you know, the classic example to counter what you're saying is the bee. You know, many people
yes.
go crazy if a bee comes around. I'm like, if without the bees, we're not going to be here. You
No
know,
one is going to be here.
no one is
Nothing is
going to
going to
be
be
here.
here.
And so whenever I have a bee come around me, I'm always in a place of love. And so even if the bee comes and sits on me, sits on my face, I don't try to push it away. Even with wasps, I do the same thing. Even though there's some sort of inbuilt fear, it might sting me. I'm like, if I go to that place of fear, it's more likely to trigger the animal into reacting, because it's going to feel my fear and then be afraid of me and attack me. So I think, you know, there are definitely a few insects that I'm not so keen on, but I think we've all got a few of those somewhere in the locker. But hey, they
Yes.
probably feel the same about me. So, you know, it's all good, right?
But explaining, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying to my students as well. Explain to them. I'm so sorry. You know, I had this bad experience. I had a bad experience as a child. Thankfully, I've gotten through that with that particular insect, and we now have a very good relationship with. But said, look, I had this very bad experience, and I'm so sorry. I don't want to offend you. I have love for all living beings, but for some reason, I'm just not comfortable. You just need to move out. Or, you know, it doesn't mean that I'm going to take the slipper and just bang it on you. I'm just going to, you know, gently put a paper underneath your legs. I'll be very careful not to squash them, and I'll put a cup over you, and I'll take you out to the shed, and please have a lovely, wonderful life over there, and stay outside of the house. You know, it's simple. And the more we do it, the more we practice it, it just, I mean, people say, you know, how many times do you spend a day intuitively communicating with them? I'm like, all the time. I mean, the weather even. Um, I don't know if I had told you about this. I don't know if you got a chance to see it back then. I was invited to P. Horsley Summit last year, and I talked about my experience communicating with fire when we first moved to this house. We're renting, by the way. We had fixed the whole place up just a few weeks, and then a fire breaks out and burns everything all around the fence of our land. I followed the guidance. I was very afraid. I was very afraid. I would see everything disappear in moments. But I followed the principles of, I love you. I understand that you're here for a reason. And I know that most possibly you've been man-made, you know, because it was arson fire. But I do love what you do. I do love your service on this planet. If you find my life and my animals' lives useful in this new place that we've come, this is who I am, this is what I do, I want to serve the planet. Can you please spare us? We have photographs. Saskia actually has seen these photographs, our mutual friend. And she visited here shortly after that fire. She could not, I mean, she believed, but you know, it's like everything was charcoal outside our fences. It didn't come through. I'm not saying that, you know, yeah, go walk in the middle of a fire and just say, you know, I'm a good
But I
person.
get what you're
Fire is
saying.
going to
Like,
protect me. But everything is possible. And it's not about intuitive interspecies communication alone. It's not intuitive interbeing communication. It's about feeling love and the right for every single being, element and elemental, to feel and experience life to its fullest and do their mission. If for some reason this place had to be burned down, it would burn down. But I introduced myself, I introduced my intentions, I introduced my family. I said who we are and what we're here to do and what we want to be doing to this place. And she spared us. And I mean, it was a remarkable experience to feel that. And because I was doubtful about how I'm going to do that when I'm actually shaking meters away from tall fire flames burning down the house. I mean, the fireman's like, you're not going to live.
It sounds remarkable, right? But it's not the first time that I've heard experience of this. There's another member of our much wider spiritual community, a lady called Lisa Renee, who channels a lot of stuff from the stars, really interesting stuff. She shared a similar story to do with the Californian fires, or what they perceive to be the wildfires. But that's, I think, another rabbit hole story for another time. But she said that she was employing similar kind of principles, and many in the community that she was living in, and the wildfire swept through their suburban community, I think, and all of the houses that were practicing this sort of energetic communication, none of them, they literally had a ring around the house, and everything outside the ring was burnt, but their houses were completely okay. And you go back into Tibetan Buddhism, and they talk about the weather lamas who sit up on the mountains, and they talk to the elemental spirits. And of course, my teacher, Patrick Manaway, does the same thing when he's well whispering and bringing water back. And so we know that water and fire and air and earth, they all respond to intention. We know from taking plant medicine, particularly with sacred fungi, for example. If you give it a set of instructions or requests, it will work through them for you during your medicine space. Same with any of those medicines. In fact, with all plants, my good buddy Pete Jackson Main, the herbalist who I do Web of Weird with, he always talks now from the perspective of being a herbalist, but also the quantum, and talking about neuroimmunomodulators, plants like the elder tree. What does that do? It bypasses the brain and talks completely to the energetic system, says, hey, what's wrong with Davyd? What does Davyd need? Oh, Davyd needs to purge right now. He's got some junk and gunk in his system. Or David's actually pretty good. He just needs his immune system boosting. So the plant will vary its actions because of its own intelligent communication with the intelligence in my body medicine to produce a result that enables my well-being. Davyd doesn't really have to do anything. Don't even have to think about it. Just have to give the intention to please fix whatever you think needs fixing in my body, and it will do it by itself. I'm still mind blown by that every time I share it, because it's incredible.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. And I mean, I say this and I've experienced it so many times. Many people ask, like, what if my animal says no to that question? What if the fire says no? I have never experienced them saying no. Yeah, run.
But I agree.
Experienced them saying no. It's like, ask and you shall receive. It's that simple. They're not here for us alone, but they are here to work with us. They're here to live with us and love with us and feel joy with us. They want to share their beautiful, sacred and secret world of love and joy with us. All we need to do is just open our hearts, ears and eyes, actually. And I've never felt a situation where I was refused a collaboration with a part of nature, or instead I've heard, okay, how can we make this work? Because I don't want to give up those trees. But you say that, a bulldozer is going to come to open a road. And in the end, there's no other solution, because I can't stop the establishment and all these authorities. And I'm just doing a little ceremony that they have guided me to do, or a little prayer. And I take a little pine cone of each and I put it on my altar and said, you will be remembered forever. And they said, we want to be useful. And I asked permission, said, can I take some of your wood after they destroy you to give me warmth? And I will remember you in the warm nights near the fireplace in the winter. That makes a huge difference, not just for those trees and the beings that living around and off those trees and ourselves. It reverberates, it ripples out, that there is kindness, and not just kindness, that there is also consciousness from some people, human or animal, about what is happening. And the moment you see that somebody cares, it is easier to even for them to let go of life, because somebody cares. It's so much. I'm not saying it's not painful, okay, but it just makes it, like I said in the beginning, somebody's holding your hand through a difficult situation or through a difficult time. It is important. It does make a difference in that moment.
Of course it does.
These are the principles.
Are no different, right, Eleni? If someone, when we transition from this body, those of us understand that we're eternal, know that we're going to transition to another experience, and all of nature is like that somehow. But that doesn't necessarily mean that in the moment of the passing we don't need someone to hold our hand, remind us it's going to be okay, or even explain, like, you know, how many times have anyone who's ever done any psychopomp work come across an earthbound spirit or a ghost who doesn't know they're dead? And first of all, you have to explain, hey, buddy, sorry to tell you, man, but that car crash that you thought you survived, you didn't. And I need to guide you over that. And sometimes there's a process, you know, as an empathic being, to sit with a deceased spirit and say, hey, I need to let you know about a few things that have happened, but it's okay. Don't worry. We're gonna get your ancestors, and Mikhail's going to give us a hand over the veil, and everything's going to be okay. But prior to that, those beings, or some aspect of that being, is still trapped. And so it is a lot, I just think, about communication, because in the end, everything is eternal, really. We're all part of the same fractal universe. But sometimes in a given moment down here in duality, we need to be the medium, which I think is what you obviously do really well, and communicate why certain things are going to happen. Even if we personally don't want the trees to be chopped down, we can explain to trees, hey, I'm really sorry, man, I've tried everything. We've had even a protest group, but these guys, they're going to come and chop you down. So let's prepare for that situation and make it less bad somehow, or somehow even better. We can move a dryad tree spirit to another tree. We can tell the nature spirits, hey, sorry about your little fairy home, it's going to be knocked down, but hey, I've got you another one over here that looks really good. You know, exactly. How do you fancy moving over there? And so we can mitigate or even make the situation better sometime, in the same way that we might do with humans when something bad is going on, right?
Absolutely. And because you mentioned that, it is so biggest part of my client work with animal communication is especially when animals are transitioning, and
Right.
humans have to make the decision of possibly assisting by euthanasia for this animal to leave their body. So it is so important. When I'm called beforehand, it is easier because we explain to them why and how this is going to happen and what the process is going to be and so on and so forth. But even in situations when somebody has reached out to me after the animal has been euthanized, or it's been a few weeks or a few months, you know, you see that, like you say, they're being fragmented, and you have to say, hey, you know, you have to go over there. You know, they're your friends, and, you know, there's some other humans and some other animals waiting, and this is why this happened, and this is how it was going to be. And I'm sorry you were not informed, but I'm here now. Let me show you the way. And it's just, I mean, intuitive communication can have so many applications in everything in our lives. There are groups of international animal communicators that are forming, you know, circles or prayer circles or global meditations, and working on projects that have to do with paperwork and establishment and legislation. And you pray about the course of how you want things to go and how you want things to move, and for the hearts of the humans to change towards kindness and compassion. We have seen things that were hopeless from government and establishment to change when the intention is being set and there is a prayer and a meditation around the subject. We have seen huge changes around these kinds of things. It's not just about animal communication. It's not just about the cat scratching the furniture. It can have so many other applications. And this is where Interspecies Peace as an organization is coming in. We're trying to educate people, holding workshops, holding adults spiritual journeys, where they can come and connect with nature, learn the steps of animal communication, of course, to put them into practice in their daily lives with their own animals, but how to also process that and expand that even further in their lives. And this is where the Lionhearted Leadership Academy comes in. How do you take this new skill set, new awakened skill set, and put it into practice in your daily life with how and what you eat, how you clean your home, how much and where do you travel, how do you take care of your body, how much you shop. It just affects everything, because then you're becoming conscious of the lives that are being affected: human, animal, plant, mineral, all of lives. Once we do this, everybody's just changing. And they say, I have had friends who say to me, you know, I came to your workshop. I don't think I really done very well with animal communication, but I have definitely changed the way that I go about my eating or my shopping, or simply, I no longer kill the spiders in the house. I just take them outside. It's a win. Either way, it's a win for life. it's a win for life. And that is one of the missions of Interspecies Peace, to educate and bring it mainstream, to make it mainstream, bring it into schools. And it is coming into schools. I've been invited by school camps or by private school events outside of school, because, you know, you can't go into school yet because establishment has to say it's okay, and given little workshops to children. You'd be fascinated to see how children find it so easy and so natural. I spent the first week of January, you know, just until 2 days ago, unexpectedly having my 5-year-old niece here at the house. I was learning from her every single day. I would see her talk to the animals, and she would respond back to me what they're saying to her. I don't care if it's from her head or from her heart. I just want her to know that it's okay for her to do this, and that I loved that she was doing it. And we would just have conversations and tea parties with the dogs. It's fine. It's absolutely amazing. And you see the animals joining a lot more the conversation of a child than me, who's supposed to even be my job, and I am supposed to be good at it. It's like, you know, we heard you before, but this is new.
Right.
She is going to be the change that's coming. So they gave her so much more attention. They just gave her so much more information. Like, she would ask them to do things and they would do them. And I'd be like, oh, you don't do that for me. You know, but this is co-creation. This is collaboration. And to witness that is just a gift. It's just, oh, sorry, I'm getting ecstatic now, but it's just brilliant.
I get it. And you know what's really amazing, as we come to the end of what has been a rapid hour, Eleni, and I hope it has already. And I think that perhaps this is an introduction conversation to, I hope, actually an ongoing set of conversations, because what I think you've beautifully done is opened up the conversation.
Because we still haven't talked about the unicorns and the dragons.
Well, I know, and I think maybe that's where we're going to go in future conversations. But what I think you've done really beautifully today, and perhaps is a great place to bring this particular conversation to a conclusion, is show people the importance of mindfulness in every single moment of every single day. Now, our tribe know all about this through our beloved Dandelion, who is the master of time and the master of the present moment. And what he shows us is that the more present we are, the more that we start to see the synchronicities happen, the magic happen, but the more that we take care over every single action that we take. And, you know, I think a bit like you with the animals, it's the same with me and the plants in the garden. When I'm gardening, the plants require me to be 100% present with them, whether I'm putting seeds with intention, whether I'm potting, whether I'm shifting them, whether I'm pruning them and having to explain, hey, I've got to cut a few branches back, or, hey, sorry, Lady Mugwort, you've kind of taken over and now the other plants have got pushed out and I need to bring things back into a place of balance. It's all about mindfulness and being aware that I'm surrounded by everything in my world being filled with spirit and consciousness, whether it's the rocks. I work a lot with rock beings. You know, I work with many elemental beings and they respond. The communication is different from each species to another. But ultimately, I think what you're really sharing with us, Eleni, is how to be present, how to be mindful. And when you are, the potentials start to open up, and it can be interspecies communication, interbeing communication, elemental communication, all of these things. So with all of this in mind, as a final comment from yourself for today, and I know that we're going to have more conversations because we barely scratched the surface, so I'm excited about that too. But what would you like to share with our audience as a final thought about what we've chatted about today? And also, we're going to share all of the links for your organizations, but if there's anything else you'd like to say there too before we wrap up.
Thank you. Yeah, just check out the website, check out some of the upcoming events. There's a retreat in a Greek island coming up in May, and it's not on the website yet, but there is a trip to the White Lions that I will be facilitating next year, 2025. It's in the works. Wow. And I'm looking forward to come back and do more of this co-creation. And one last thing maybe I can say is that people are very much obsessed about sustainability. Interspecies Peace as an organization and intuitive interspecies communication is not just about sustainability. It's about thrivability. It's not just about sustaining a way of life, which is really quite poor for everyone nowadays. It's about how we can all thrive together. Yeah. So let's hold that vision. Let's hold that vision of co-creating a harmonious and balanced way of life where we can all thrive. And it is possible. We are past the ticking clock's time, but there is still a little bit of time where we can turn this back. We can still do it. There's still hope. So as our
And
dear
I can tell that the wind elementals here like that comment because they've just gone crazy. I listen to the wind a lot. The wind, if you listen to it, tells you many things, tells me many stories.
well, thank you, wind, for
Thank you, wind. For sure.
validating.
And today is the day of the white wind. We work a lot with the Mayan wave spells, and today's glyph is the white wind. So something also interesting there. But
There you
thank
have
you
it.
so much. Perfect.
Validation from nature herself. Thank you, the
And
wind.
it happens so often, Eleni, the validations come. If I'm sitting having a profound thought about something or I'm meditating and I ask a question, the wind will often come and tell me the answer. All I have to do is adjust my type of communication to understand what is it the wind wants to tell me. Sometimes the wind wants to come and play with the nature spirits and they want to talk to me about something, right? And people might go, oh my God, this guy's a complete, fruitcake or something. But you know what? The information that comes through, I use it in my life and it has a coherence to it that makes things better. And for me, it's always about the coherence of the message. If I'm getting a load of gobbledygook that's feeding some part of my ego that doesn't really serve any benefit, then I know that it's probably in my brain that's kicked in. If I'm getting information that seems a little abstract, but somehow then later, oh my God, like that's what the tree told me.
Exactly.
That's where we get the validations from. So for sure, I want to have more conversations about unicorns, dragons, cats, birds, snakes, and a whole bunch of other stuff, because I think it's going to be super interesting. But for today, Eleni, thank you so much. I've super enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, David. Thank you to anyone who's listening, watching. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
You're super welcome. And we'll put all of Eleni's links to her organizations and the various things she's talked about in the show notes for today. And we'll have a chat, I think, probably off screen again about how we can continue this conversation, because I think it's really important, Eleni, everything that you've shared, because it is what this whole process is about. It's learning to understand that we are part of nature and that nothing is outside of that. And the more that we learn to respect and be in co-creation with everything around us, the more beautiful and harmonious our world will be for us all to experience. The cats, the dogs, the unicorns, the humans, the trees, the plants, the mushrooms, the stones, everybody can live together in some kind of beautiful new earth utopia, I think. And I really do believe that in my heart. And of course, the heart is the place that we connect to nature with, which is why the heart is a green chakra. And of course connects us to our fifth dimensional self, which of course is unconditional love, or just love. So thank you, Eleni, for today. It's been really beautiful to connect. Hopefully our audience has enjoyed this, and for sure we're going to talk, I think, about some extensions to this, and maybe even we can point some of you towards Eleni's workshops coming up too. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Eleni, for being on our platform QPW today. And we'll hope to see you again very soon for a continuation of this conversation into some other interesting areas, I think. So thank you, everybody. Ciao for now. Take it easy. Bye.